Good morning.
Yeah. Hi, Brett.
Hi, hello all.
Ashley, Neil, Carissa, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good, you?
Hey, Neil.
How's it going, everyone?
Good.
Well,
Is the streets department handling all this beautiful, cool weather we're having, Brian?
we're handling it. I don't know how much we're enjoying it, but yeah.
I was walking across one of the parking lots on campus yesterday, and I kid you not, my foot stuck to one of the asphalt fill patches, and made like a perfect shoe imprint. It was a little scary.
Yeah, some of that asphaltic rubber gets a little soft when it's 100 degrees.
Holy cow! I guess.
Yeah.
Brett, how's the watering going at the cemetery?
All day long. Going good. So we're making a lot of headway on it. Just go through our normal cycle and circle back around all the dry spots. So
Yeah.
dragging lots of hoses around.
We are anxiously awaiting the install of our new irrigation pump.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Do you have an ETA on that?
Soon.
Oh, wow.
Everything, they have all the parts here except for one piece that 2 states away said that they are trying to get on it within here the next week or two. So.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it is.
I had in my mind that it was all the parts were gonna be so back ordered that it'd be, this time next year that we'd get it.
He said that if it would have been another week out or so, he probably couldn't have found any of them.
Wow, nice timing. Kim, I don't think I've ever noticed before that you have 2 safes in your office. What was that? I missed it.
I didn't hear that either. You're cutting out, Kim, but it sounded good, whatever part of it was.
Is that the new?
Oh, one of the safes is for drawers and stuff to go in with cash, and our other one is our excess cash. So
The new definition of a safe room. Sorry.
I'd love to get rid of the big one, but the guys that moved it in, it took 5 of them. They told me it was never leaving that spot.
Oh dear.
And Paul is here at the courthouse in a meeting, and he's supposed to be done with his meeting, and he sent me an email asking if he could come.
Oh, nice.
And sit here, but I haven't seen him yet. Oh, Paul, hey, speak of the devil, he's here.
Hey.
How much for a puppy? Huh? I don't know if he's gonna. He was like, considering this. First generation Arab. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Well, 3 board members.
I thought our new board member was going to join us.
Yeah, she had a scheduling conflict for this first meeting, but she'll join this future forward. So let's see. Do we have a quorum then?
Yeah.
3 out of 5. That seems right.
Yeah.
All right. That's exciting. Sorry, I was trying to pull up my agenda here, which I must have closed out. Sorry. So while I'm pulling this up, let's do roll call real quick. There's Paul and Kim and Neil. Hey, we're all here. That makes it easy. And then I think we need to approve last month's minutes. Did you guys have a chance to look at those?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Then they are approved. Awesome. Thank you. Sorry, I was agenda. Oh, phew. Took me a while to find it. There we go. Now I'll be much more productive. Sorry about that. Oh yeah, look, I'm even doing things in order. Oh, we're doing good. Do we have any public in this meeting for public comment? I'm gonna take that as a no. If anyone does join, Ashley or Carissa, maybe you could help us keep an eye on that, and maybe we'll be able to find time in the in the agenda for them to chime in as well later. So we can move right along to financials.
Can somebody pull up the financial statement for me, please?
I can, just a moment.
Thanks, Ashley. Oh, I see Jeremy's on as well. Thanks for joining us today, Jeremy.
Well, we're
Hey, good morning, Neil. I'm listening in on my phone while I'm on my way to get some lunch.
No, you're fine. Drive safely.
I'll walk. It'll be okay.
Okay. Go ahead, Brett. Sorry to interrupt you.
So as you know, we're at the end of the fiscal year, and these are the numbers that we have so far. We do have some outstanding bills that been invoiced that's just not on here yet. Our final numbers for all of this will be due or come to in August. If you want to look through them and have any questions, I guess.
I just had one question regarding rent. That's rent for the apartment, is that correct?
Correct.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but that individual is also providing a service to the county in terms of like on-site security.
Yeah, he goes around and makes sure that there's nobody in the cemetery and then locks the gates at night.
Okay. And I'm just, given everything that's going on with rent prices in Missoula right now, I was just wondering if we needed to review that, what we're charging for rent, but I don't know. I'm just raising a question, not suggesting we do, but.
Yeah, I think it's slated for a 4% increase there. I think it goes along with the rest of our increases every year.
Okay. Thank you.
Hey, Brett and Chris, a quick question on the personnel budget, that 103,000 remaining budget. Is that accounting for the pump and the chipper that we just purchased, or are those not in there yet?
Those are not in there yet.
Okay. So for the most part, we're probably going to be pretty close to zeroed out, maybe have a little surplus on everything else, but it looks like we're in pretty good shape here.
Yeah, Carissa, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we have a few $1,000s of outstanding. It's not on here yet, but
Yeah, we still have expenses that won't come through until they get billed, so like credit card and things like that, where they don't even get statements until halfway through July. So we'll have things backdating in June.
So Brian, when you started working with us, I know you had a lot of concerns about budget and what we would look like at the end of the year. How are you feeling about it right now?
I feel good. I feel good about it. One thing on that personnel side, if I remember correctly, the chipper and the irrigation pump, what do we estimate, like 62,000 or something, Brett? Was that?
Yeah, they're down at the bottom in the 940 account. They just haven't offset from the payroll vacancy request yet.
Okay. All right. So you'll see that personnel budget. We will still have a surplus, but we'll have to wait till the end of June and figure out exactly what it is, but it's not going to be that much. And so using that vacancy savings to purchase those two items was an excellent process for us to do and get those done. So I don't anticipate seeing that much vacancy savings in the future.
No, that was awesome. I'm glad that the city was able to identify that savings and allow us to reinvest in some needed equipment.
Yeah. So this will probably make a little more sense in the next budget meeting.
And end of year, if we have any surplus, that rolls back into the city's general fund, correct?
Well, we need to look at that. And Susan, maybe you can chime in because some of this is in capital reserve. So I'm wondering if some of it will go to the general fund and then the other half will go back into capital reserve.
I don't know how that works, Brian.
We can find out, Neil.
It would just be nice to know for point of reference.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Cool, thank you.
any other questions on this expenditure budget?
I don't have any more,
Okay, can we move on to the revenue?
please.
Thank you. So last month we had 6 grave sales. We had 2 second interments. We had 3 casket interments and 4 cremation interments. We sold 7 liners or polyvaults or access keys. We had 4 monument cleanings. We sold 3 monument permits. And we had another 2 flower beds show up late and went.
This is great information. I was just thinking, it's like, we get this monthly. I was wondering if it's possible you could, like you do at the bottom, you tally it up per year, but wonder, is it too much to ask if we could do this summary so that we kind of see it tallied for the year?
It's the number of interments is on the bottom there, Phil. Is that what you're referring to?
I was talking about the costs and that split specifically.
Okay. Costs or revenue?
It's the revenue, but how it's split.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think we could do that.
And we did have 63 internments, which is up from last year. So it's been a pretty busy year, especially for caskets. We were trying our numbers were way up on casket funerals.
Yeah, that's interesting. We were supposed to be seeing a declining trend in casket burials.
Hey, Brett, could you say, like, is there a average age that's associated with those casket burials?
We'd have to go back and research that, but I would guess a majority of those are 65 and older.
I don't know what that means, just curious.
Yeah, I was going to ask the same thing, Phil. Why? Any guesses why the casket interments went up significantly this year? Maybe the usual response could be, well, it was COVID, but I don't know. It's interesting.
Well, a lot of people go with traditional services due to religious beliefs and personal beliefs as well. But maybe it's just a lot of people from that era that still believe in traditional services.
Mhm.
Sorry about that. My kids were having a squabble.
Any other questions on our revenue?
No, I'm good.
Looks like you're on the next one, Neil.
Sorry, hold on. I just wanted to take a note here on something I thought of for the budget before I moved on, before I forgot what I was talking about. Can someone pull up the strategic priorities worksheet? Okay, so Paul and I didn't actually get to meet in person, but we did email back and forth, and I think we're pretty well on the same page with this. There's going to be some differences in priorities as far as like where Jeremy is and the staff and the board. In general, you know what Paul and I emailed back and forth about was deprioritizing some of the stuff that would require to be included in like the master plan. So, you know, like landscaping, as much as we would like to do some of that, it really ties into, you know, an architectural design or plan of the space as a whole. Paul, did you want to?
I thought you were doing a great job, Neil.
What's that?
I thought you were doing a great job.
Okay. I mean, you're the expert here, so I don't want to speak for you necessarily either.
You know, that was the idea. It's like, you know, some of this is rather than throwing a dart at a board, I think we should bring in a professional to go through kind of a master planning process. We have the bones of the strategic plan is the backbone for where we want to do with the cemetery and the goals for some of those goals for it. Now it's like the master plan would take that and go through a process of identifying further depth and identifying what those are, how we can phase it, how we can break it out into reasonable budgets and scopes of work that kind of move the cemetery forward into the future. So that was kind of my idea in terms of that. I think there are some things, yes, we could move forward with, but at the same time, it's like, it'd be great to have a overall master plan of the cemetery into the future.
And so I think, you know, from a fiscal point of view, then is if we want to look at, you know, a more cohesive design of the space that we have, then we should maybe deprioritize some of those things that would be included in that, and prioritize certainly the things that we can do or should be done for safety or, deferred maintenance that's causing problems, et cetera, et cetera. So I kind of want to just go down the list with everyone, and then hopefully people can chime in as we go on each of these items, and we can work out, see if there's anything, like, say, for instance, Paul and I didn't think of when we're looking at an item. So please chime in as we go here. So the PEP program, I think this one's very doable, and we should be able to move forward with that in this fiscal year, I'm thinking. Is that, Brett, do you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, I certainly think we can do that.
Okay. Carissa, do you mind taking notes on as we go down this list?
Yeah, that's totally fine.
Thank you. So landscape buffer, I guess, again, this one for Paul and I was thinking that this would be part of a more overall cohesive plan. Brett, is there, it looks like the staff didn't prioritize this very high either. Is there anything that maybe we didn't think of in regards to this?
It's just a big maintenance issue, time-wise, as far as planting and watering.
So you'd be okay if we maybe move this further down on the list of to-dos? Okay. Replacing the frontage fence. So I think Paul and I I know Paul scored this higher than I did. I guess in my mind, this was, again, more of a overall, is there an aesthetic that we need to plan out with the rest of the space? Paul, did you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, I would agree with that, Neil. I was thinking, like, that would be part of that master plan, a priority within the master plan, not necessarily something we move forward with immediately.
Brett, what are your thoughts?
I'm not a big fan of removing the fence. I think it does provide some security just as far as vandalism is concerned. It does help keep out some garbage too. Garbage trucks are back and forth on this road all the time. And the fence does stop some of that. Granted, we have to go pick it up on the outside of the fence, but it would work its way into the cemetery and be a little more of an issue for us.
Is what we have now serviceable until we can come up with a bigger design plan?
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with the fence. It's just, an older chain link fence that's got some bumps and bruises on it, but it still serves its purpose.
It's not beautiful. I think we all agree on that, but Kim, feel free to jump in on any of these too.
I have to agree with Brett that I am so against removing the fence in front for a number of reasons, and some of them he mentioned.
Just so I'm on the same page here, so doesn't it say remove the existing fence and install a more substantial privacy fence? Are we talking about that interim time between removal and installation that we're concerned, or?
Well, there's a couple of separate line items here. One is replace the frontage fence with an ornamental fence, and then the line item below that is remove the western fence with a more substantial privacy fence.
Right. So we would still have the security, just that we would have a better privacy.
They're talking about the road that's on like Racer Drive or whatever that's called there on the main railroad side. They're talking about removing that. We're either replacing it with an ornamental fence or removing it completely.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, and then they were saying if you did it with even ornamental fence, it was a low one, not to provide security whatsoever.
Yeah, I don't think we want to do that.
And another issue there is if we do get rid of the fence, are we going to have to hire a security company to come out do rounds and, just to make sure that there's no shenanigans going on out here, or it's going to be what it is?
And so I think these are good discussions, and in my thought, and please, let me know if you have different feelings about it, but this is stuff that could be done and discussions that could be had when we're looking at an overall design plan.
I agree. And I wonder too, if the cost of this would start pushing us into the need where we'll have to wait till the adjacent land is sold to fund this.
Right,
So
right.
scoring this high right now might be kind of a waste of time.
Yeah, and so again, these recommendations are really, what do we want to prioritize spending money on in this upcoming fiscal year? Well, I guess it is a new fiscal year. It's July 1st.
That's kind of what I was thinking, Neil, but if the board has a different idea, let us know.
Yeah, no, I think we're all on the same page here so far, right? We're all good. So, Chris, I mean, we're looking at the PEP program moving forward, and then all of this landscaping stuff maybe being postponed until next fiscal year or until we can fund some sort of development plan for the property.
I think so.
Add significant plant material to the north fence line. I guess I don't know where I was feeling on this one, just because it may be kids. Sorry. This may have more of a need now. Brett, I was kind of hoping you would weigh in on whether or not you felt that this was a higher priority item.
I would say it's a medium.
Okay.
It's tree lined now all the way across that fence. You can still see some of the industrial activity happening. And again, it kind of falls in line with the other landscape buffer. It's going to be a significant cost for the plants themselves, and then just the maintenance side of getting them planted and established. But it's something we can do, over time, do X amount of percent this year, next year, etc.
One thing too to keep in the back of your mind too is, and landscaping may not be the only project, but as we increase our landscaping in whatever fashion, realize that it may start to overstress our current resources for maintenance. And then down the road, if we get all these things built, then we may have to ask for some additional funding for personnel or budget to handle this additional maintenance created by the landscape. I mean, it's one thing to fund it and build it. It's another thing to maintain it after the fact. So just be ready for that down the road as we continue on.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. I would suggest that whatever landscaping we do, we kick that into the master plan, so that analysis can be done before we make any decisions on it.
I agree, Phil. Good point.
Okay. Repainting the garages. I mean, no one scored this as really a high priority, but I also think that it's something that's doable within the fiscal year.
What's wrong with them? Sorry. The color is not bad. I don't get it.
The Sloan Group was looking for a more neutral color, I guess, an earth tone type color.
Those are big buildings. They're right there up against the road. Putting a softer color isn't gonna, I mean, that's money that could be spent elsewhere.
Brett, what's the condition of the paint? I mean, are they in need of paint this year? Touch up or?
They were repainted roughly 5-6 years ago.
No.
I bet it was 2.
It was like 2 years ago that you guys did the paint job on that. 2, maybe 3.
Yeah.
It's not been that long.
I'm kind of on the same agreement with Kim. It's like, that's not a priority. And, kick the can on that one.
I agree also.
Brett, do you feel the paint is in a good enough condition that it can wait?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there's nothing
Okay.
wrong.
Cool. All right. Well, let's get that one off the list for this fiscal year then. So again, we're another landscaping item. We all okay with moving those to Waiting for a master development plan. Okay. Design and build a new long-term facility. Again, in my mind, this really goes back to a larger development plan. Everyone okay with that? I see head shaking, yes, so we'll keep going. Create a permanent placement option for cremated remains. I think this one seems doable, especially in this fiscal year. Any thoughts?
Brett, any idea on cost for something like that?
I'd have to look into it, but I can't give any numbers off the top of my head. No. It's essentially going to be 2 walls, one with the remains stored in it that there's no access to other than from the staff. And there's a wall off to the side, in a sense it's a memorial wall, and their names get engraved on that.
I see.
And it's a cheaper option. I believe that they suggest that we charge like $300 or even $100, and then that way the person's in their name is registered within the cemetery, and it's just a cheaper option for people.
I'm confused here. We have all the new things that we just got set up for cremations. Why
Yeah.
would we do new walls?
I guess I'm wondering, yeah, what's the difference between this and a niche wall?
Yeah,
The remains are stored inside of this wall, and there's no
No niches?
niches, no.
Oh, I see.
Their names aren't engraved on the outside of that building. It's a wall off to the side.
so you pour their ashes in the wall?
Yeah, it's essentially a vault.
So everyone's all mixed together in there, then they get their name. And stuff on
They're
the
still in an urn.
Oh,
Oh, they're in and out.
okay.
Okay.
So you have to carefully place the urns inside.
Yeah,
So it's like bulk storage for ashes, and they get their name inscribed on the adjacent wall.
correct.
Has that even been requested?
That was in the strategic plan, yeah.
That was a
But
recommendation.
have you had requests?
Excuse me, Kim?
Have you had requests from customers?
No, I have none, no. This was a suggestion by them. This is a lower cost option for people.
This is different than what I thought it was. I mean, I would, based on our conversation right now, I would say we kick that into the master plan as well. So we can get a little bit more information on that and do a little bit more, maybe market analysis of.
Yeah, I'm just wondering how much interest there is for this. I
And
mean,
it could potentially take away from some of our revenue from, like, say, the niche walls or cremation internment.
so Brett, remind me, what's the price of a niche?
$785, I believe.
Okay, so it's about half price. All right. A little less than half. Okay.
Can we postpone this item until we can do some business analysis around this to see how it'll affect?
Yeah, I think we should contact some other cemeteries that have these and see what the potential is for it.
In the meantime, Brett, and I think we can deprioritize this, but at some point, could you maybe see about doing a cost analysis on building something like this, and then we can compare our cost ratios here to see if it's a feasible option for us.
Yep, absolutely.
Although I do like looking in different directions to have lower cost alternatives to the public. I think that does make sense. I'm sure there would be a lot of people that would appreciate that. But let's do some business research on this.
Yeah, agreed.
Brett, can you talk about the centigraph, if I'm saying that correctly?
Yeah, that's kind of what I was explaining, because the question above that, or the statement above that these two go hand in hand.
Okay, that's what I thought.
So the
Okay, so
the wall off to the side that their names are actually engraved on. And it's just their name. There's no birth or death dates or anything like that. It's just a name.
Okay, well, let's maybe just count those as two, as the same item then, and move them to another time frame. Lay out a cremation grave section in the cemetery for cremated remains to be buried.
I don't know what the board's opinion on this, but I think personally, I'd rather see this one go ahead of the bulk vault storage. Plus, it's a more efficient use of space. And I would guess that the capital costs involved with it would be much less.
Yeah, very much so.
I agree.
I mean, I'm kind of surprised this one scored a medium, but I think this is something that's doable in this fiscal year. Particularly if we get the county GIS system set up and we can start mapping and prepare for these smaller cremation grave sites, and it'd be a more efficient use of our space. Plus, I'm assuming it would be a less expensive option versus casket, maybe even for a niche. I don't know, maybe not. Maybe it'd still be more than a niche, but I think that's something we should look into.
Yeah, I'm on board with that. Kim, Paul?
Yeah, I agree.
Cool. All right, well, let's move that to this fiscal year. Brett, you're okay with that?
Oh, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks, Brian. We can skip those last two, or those two grayed out ones. Designate multiple cremation graves for individual above ground cremation products.
This kind of goes along with we're just changing our ordinances to where we allow human remains in a headstone now, which essentially there's like two niches inside of a headstone. So they don't take up any ground space. So if we create in section 4 of those, kind of like our family cremation plot, just a row or two of, essentially it's only going to take up 2 feet wide by however long we want to make it.
Yeah. I think this one could be done in a fiscal year too without too much expense.
Yeah. Kim, Paul, are you okay with that?
Mhm. Yep.
Cool. Let's move forward on that one as well. Thank you for changing the page. Establish the prepaid escrow fund. I think everyone's in agreement that that should be moved forward, correct?
Yep.
Okay. Expand the engraving.
Hey, real quick question on that one. Susan, do we have to do an ordinance change for that, or was that part of what we already did?
Ask me again, Brian.
I'm
Ask me
sorry,
again.
on establishing the prepaid escrow fund, does that require an ordinance change, or did we already do that?
I think we already did that.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. Expand the engraving. I think there's some mixed feelings on this one. Brett, do you want to talk us through the issues that you'll have?
So when it talked about in the strategic plan was having us engraving death dates and charging a fee for them. They would have to come to us, the customer would, and request that we do it. Generally, the monument company provides that service and is paid for it by the client. The big problem for us would be to matching any font that they use. And, there's a million different types of font, and for us to try and match that up without knowing what program was used prior, and I think it would be a big headache. I don't think we could match it up very efficiently.
Well, Kim, and wasn't this the same issue that came up a few years ago when we tried to buy that machine, and the engraving or the funeral home, the private sector just threw a fit over it?
That, and plus I just didn't want that being offered, but we were only looking at it for the niche walls, not for, headstones finishing off what the monument company. That would scare me because, as Brett said, if the font's even off a little bit, Or what if you make a mistake and, oh, I want the whole dang headstone redone? I just think we're putting ourselves open for a huge liability doing that.
And honestly, it's probably not, would never be a big revenue maker. There would probably be a handful of them a year at most.
But we are offering the service for the niche walls now, correct?
Yes, that comes with the pricing of the niche wall.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. I don't know that I see this as even being a need for us to think about. Kim, Paul,
There's, in my mind, there's no justification to do this, but
I couldn't hear you, Paul. Sorry.
I don't see a justification for this.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Okay, let's cross that one off then. Expanding historic signage. I think everyone likes this idea, especially if we can find some funding for it. But if not, can we add this to our requested budget for this year?
Well,
Right.
and Neil,
Sorry,
I wonder, would we even have to? I mean, if we can get grants for it, would we even need to include it as a budget item? I think we should just look into it and see what we can find out.
Okay.
And that may dovetail into if we continue on with the historic registry. That may open up some more options for funding outside of the city.
Well, let's come back to this particular line item because I know that Paul is going to talk about our registry listing update here in a second.
Yeah.
Add signage to indicate irrigation water is not for drinking. I mean, I think that's a safety concern, in my opinion. Shouldn't that be prioritized?
Yes, I agree. And I think that's a fairly easy one to move forward with.
Kim, Paul, you okay with that?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Brett, you're okay with that?
Yeah.
Cool. So apply for designation as a National Historic Place. I think in general, we're all on the same page that we're moving forward with this. And again, Paul is going to talk to us more about it in a minute. Is anyone particularly opposed? I know there's a little concern about, like, does this prevent us from doing anything? And the short answer is, from what I understand, no, but Paul can talk more about that any specifics. Jeremy, how was your lunch?
Excellent, thanks.
Good. I'm glad to hear it.
I have information on this one. We had an offer from our new historic preservation officer, Elizabeth Johnson, to help us with this. So
Okay.
we have a staff resource that could help get that done. And I think it is consistent with what the strategic plan says.
Awesome. Oh, that's really exciting.
So I just wanted to offer that.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. That's yeah, because there is work to be done around this, and it'll take some man hours. So that's fantastic to know that we have some assistance there. Cool. Well, let's keep that on the priority list, Carissa. Oh, the Arboretum certification. To be honest with you, I don't know what's involved with this, and how would that affect the staff. I love the idea, but is this going to be too big of an ask?
I think again, it's one of those things where the university did it, and I think we could probably do it, but there's a process involved, just like the National Register. There's going to be a lengthy process involved, and we just need to figure out what that process is and who is involved in it. I don't know that there's any budget request for it right now until we've done our due diligence on it.
Cool. Well, let's pursue this then as far as we can, and until we run into needing money.
I like that, Neil.
Does that sound good? As far as we can. And then connect with bird watching groups. I don't necessarily see this as a budgetary line item, but I think it's good marketing around the cemetery in general. Does anyone have any thoughts or concerns about that?
I think we should take the same tact with this one as the Arboretum certification. Pursue
Yeah.
it until we need more money.
I mean, I don't think it would take that much to send some emails,
Yeah.
call a few people, and then and as those groups start recognizing that we have such a great space, we can continue to develop that over time, those relationships, and if there's any needs there, we can address those. But yeah, and then we have these.
There was a gal out here a couple months ago that was doing some bird watching, and I stopped and talked to her about if they had any like organized groups or events or anything like that. And she said that usually they're all on an Autobahn app, I guess, and they get kind of chat back and forth through that. There's nothing organized, it sounds like.
Good to know. Well, maybe we can. Maybe we could look at doing something like advertising, the first, I don't know, Monday of every month, as bird watchers can come out to the cemetery, something along those lines. I don't know. It's just an off the top of my head thought, but that would be fairly easy to advertise throughout Missoula if we wanted to kind of help get that organization started anyways. Anyways.
My only concern with something like this, and maybe it's unfounded, is if we start involving ourselves with these types of groups, and I'm not saying we shouldn't, but it could lead us to saying, well, maybe we should find ways to improve bird habitat, like maybe putting in birdhouses, or say if we had a bird nest in a tree that was dying and Brett needs to cut it down, would that be a possible restriction? Or I don't know. That's why I said I think we should pursue it until we know if we're going to need more money.
Sure. Yeah, I think we're all on board with that. Kim, Paul, you have any other thoughts along those lines? Okay, sounds good. Yeah, that sounds good, Brian. Let's not overly involve ourselves, but I think we should also make ourselves open for groups that are out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, cool. Sounds good. Okay, these additional items. And Paul, you put these on here, right?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I couldn't quite remember. Feels like it's been a long time since we met last. Investigate opportunities to improve ADA wheelchair access across the grounds. I think Paul and I were agreement that this is kind of a safety concern. Are there areas that could that we could target this year? Some of this may end up being wrapped up into the larger site development plan. But can we identify what improvements we should make within this fiscal year and request budgeting for those?
Does the city have a ADA person on staff that can monitor? The county does, but I don't know if the city does. That monitors this sort of thing.
We probably have staff that are aware of certain aspects of ADA requirements. I know we have them for street-related ADA improvements. I assume that somebody in, say, the building division is probably very aware of what would be required for buildings. We would just have to reach out and see if we could get some of those folks to come over here and maybe give us a survey of what we need to do. Some of the smaller items we may be able to absorb in our operations budget. Some of the larger ones may have to go into the consultant with the strategic overall plan or master plan, Paul, that you're looking at. Some of these things can start getting real expensive. So, I mean, Brett, we're looking at doing some improvement on that front sidewalk and putting a ramp in. But I think it'd be good to have somebody that's knowledgeable to come out and take a look at everything, and then figure out what we can do and maybe what we would need to try and do a budget request for.
I think that sounds reasonable. Kim, Paul, you're on board with that?
Yep.
Cool. So Carissa, let's add that to the list. And that's probably something we should consider looking at, annually or something, but we need a starting point at this point, right? Investigate opportunities to renovate the existing buildings to accommodate current and future needs, including access, restrooms, meeting spaces, etc. So this, so again, this comes in my mind, and Paul, correct me if I'm maybe taking this in a different direction than you were, but this comes down to really, we need to come up with a plan to do a master development plan for the, how do we start? Where do we start? Who do we call? I'm thinking there's architects and landscape architects and probably specialties that I don't even know about that need to be involved in like a master design. But we need to come up with a plan to even start all of that work.
Yeah, I agree. That relates back to one of the other items we kind of put into the future, is that design a new building for long-term facility. It's like, well, before we jump there, we should investigate the existing facility and do some cost benefit analysis there between the two. I mean, I'm not sold that we have to build a new facility. I know that was in part of the strategic plan, but I don't think we've justified that yet in terms of a process. So this is part of that process. It's like, we need to do some due diligence on it first before we say we need a new building.
Jeremy, please jump in here.
So what we'll need to do to hire a consultant for this is to go through our usual procurement process. So we'll need to write an RFP and then put that out for proposals. So I think figuring out what we want to ask for in that RFP is important. And what I'm hearing is that it would be primarily landscape architecture services, but maybe a little bit of building architecture to take a look at that existing building and help us program a new building if that's the direction we go.
So Jeremy, would we look at that as a possible CIP request for FY22 to get that consultant going?
So that's actually what is already in our budget request, is a request to do that consulting services, sort of loosely defined. So that's where we're at with budget right now, is we have that. I think it's somewhere around $60,000 to hire somebody to help us with that.
And Jeremy, were you thinking that would be a master planning process, or would it be a very specific list of items that they'd be looking at?
I would call it implementation of the strategic plan. So it would be sort of a conceptual level design for all those things that are recommended in the strategic plan. So master plan is kind of a good analogy for that too. It can be what we want it to be. I think, it should be the next step in implementing the strategic plan. So I think what you've all been talking about is exactly what we need to do to flesh out those details.
And so I know that you said it's kind of loosely defined now. Do you need us to develop that further, Jeremy, that budget request?
I think when we go before council to make that request, it would be really helpful to say more specifically what we want to do with that.
Okay. And so then there's correct me if I'm wrong, and maybe I don't really need to worry about this, but there's two separate processes in play here. One, we have to request a budget amount for the work, and then once that's approved, we have to put in an RFP.
Yes.
Okay. Kim, Paul, how are you feeling about that?
Good.
Cool. Okay. Well, let's keep that as our priority for the moment. Hopefully, council will be on board with that as well. So start sending chocolates. No, I'm just kidding. Oh, shoot. I lost where I was. Okay. Contract with professional firm includes So a development of the master plan. So those two are really tied together. We'll need to, like Jeremy was saying, we'll have to flesh this out a little bit for council as far as what we're going to ask for. I think we could do that offline and add some detail so that so that we can clarify for council what we're talking about.
We can, based on what we've heard from you today, we can get that roughed out and then run it by you before we present.
Okay, even better. Thank you. Investigate burials related to women's history in Missoula, Western Montana, similar to the pamphlets that we've done for Stories and Stones, the mayors and sheriffs. I think that's a brilliant idea. I don't know, Paul, how would we proceed with this? Is this going to be an ask of the staff?
No, I think this Elizabeth and I talked, Elizabeth Johnson, the new HPO, Historic Preservation Officer, and I talked about this when we kind of toured the grounds. There's currently there's some great brochures that are available out there that talk about the individuals who are buried there, but there's no real focus on women's history, and there is a pretty prominent women's monument on the grounds. So kind of with that in mind is maybe looking at a means to kind of open up that a little bit further and use that as maybe a link back to other tours that are going on in the city of Missoula, underground Missoula, historic tours, whatever else, Bike Missoula did the bike tour out the cemetery. So maybe there's some way to create some momentum around this in terms of women's history and the cemetery.
I think that's brilliant. Absolutely.
I think it'd tie more directly to the National Register nomination and
Right.
the information that's needed to pull that together.
Great.
I don't think there's a budget request specifically for this.
I guess I'm wondering if along the lines of Stories and Stones, we've talked about, well, maybe do we need to provide some financial compensation for the actors? Is there maybe someone that we could hire to do some of the background research here? I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there as an idea.
And I don't know how the sheriff's department brochure or the mayor's department brochure, how those came together. I think Mary Ellen was kind of just did those, but I could be wrong about that. Does anybody know?
To my knowledge, it was Mary Ellen's research.
Yeah, I think she just kind of had an interest in that and did it on her own.
Angela, I forget her last name, that also worked in here with Mary Ellen, was very good at researching a lot of this stuff as well.
Yeah.
So Paul, could we maybe have Carissa work with Elizabeth and just start an in-house research on it and see what we come up with, or were you envisioning something else?
Yeah, I think that'd be a great place to start. Elizabeth has a pretty deep interest in cemeteries, National Register listed cemeteries, and experience in them. So she's kind of almost an expert on them. So I think, she'll be able to direct that a little bit harder than I could.
Okay.
She'll be a great resource.
Chris, we don't want to volunteer you for things if that's going to overload you though. So let us know if that would be problematic for you.
If I could make a suggestion, this especially for Neil, could we include a history of street superintendents also?
I don't know if any of them are actually interred out here, Brian.
Brett, you told me you were digging a grave for Brian just the other day. What are you talking about?
I might be the first one sooner than later.
I think that we should recognize any other, if there are groups or populations that are interned at the cemetery that
Yeah.
are unique to Missoula, or have contributed significantly to the city of Missoula's history. Those are things that I think we should consider looking at over
Yeah,
time.
great. Native American civil rights leaders, anything like that? I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. I wish I knew each and every person that was interned in the cemetery, but I don't. But I think some research along those lines over time would be important.
Yeah.
Jeremy, the gravity in your room apparently just shifted. You were sideways there for a moment. And so the last item on the list is to negotiate possibilities of land exchange with Huntington Precast, as they are kind of the visual front to the cemetery currently. And I think this probably plays into, again, our master development plan. I don't know, I just made that up, so bear with me. And potentially then, of course, the land sale, but I know that that's not an immediate thing either. Paul, did you have any other additional thoughts on this?
I would agree with you. I think I don't expect this process to happen quickly. It could be 10 years before any sort of negotiation comes to fruition.
Sure.
And there's a lot of players involved here, but I think it's something we should continue to push forward with and look at. Maybe included in the master plan. Does it meet budget right now? No. I just didn't want to lose track of it.
Absolutely.
And I would offer too, I have a really good relationship with Hunt Precast owner. And if we could maybe narrow down the scope of what exactly the board's envisioning, I would be happy to take the lead on that and or assist with the communication.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Jeremy.
Yeah, that's a good idea, Brian. So I made sure that this was on the radar for Missoula Redevelopment Agency. We also had a conversation yesterday with Mountain Line, who's looking at some land over there, and I just let them know that we were interested in working with Hunton on some kind of a land trade or purchase to get that entryway green space established.
Jeremy, thank you for keeping the cemetery in mind as you do all of your other large meetings. We appreciate that.
Yeah, you bet.
So I think we have from this list, Kim or Paul, actually, I should ask real quick, do you have any other items that maybe you've thought of that we need to address here as well? Okay. Brian, Brett, Jeremy.
I had one that, Neil, I had one that I didn't hear. It's possible I just missed it, but one of the high priority items that I thought we should address was the existing niche walls that are failing. Did we cover that one?
So my understanding is that we've already, Brett, maybe I'll let you weigh in on this because I don't know that I'm going to give it justice.
We've come up with a solution that we feel will work without having to remove the walls and purchase new walls, and so we're just in the process of setting all that up now. We have all the
Perfect.
materials and stuff. We're just waiting to implement the new containers.
Okay, great. So that's already happening.
Yep.
Mhm.
In
Awesome.
progress. At a significant cost savings, Jeremy, versus buying new niche walls and replacing existing ones.
Yeah, absolutely. That was an absolutely great move you guys made there to figure that out.
Yep. Thank you.
So I think Jeremy needs a vote from the board as far as confirming that we're okay with the strategic priorities that we just discussed as far as budgetary requests for this fiscal year. Kim or Paul, do you need us to read back what we've agreed on here?
Let me try. I'm just going to do it. So just as a motion then.
Yes.
We're going to proceed with the PEP program and identifying that. lay out the cremation grave section of the cemetery. Going to proceed with designating multiple cremation graves and individual above grade ground cremation products. We're going to proceed with establishing the prepaid services. We're going to add signage, look into signage on the drinking water. We're going to continue to research the historic National Register nomination. We're going to pursue the Arboretum and the bird watching only to the extent that, we're going to do some outreach and investigation on that. And then we're going to investigate the idea of consultant for assisting with the implementation plan or master plan, whatever we decide to call it. And then continue with investigating Montana history, particularly women's history on the grounds, and then negotiating with hunting.
Carissa, did we miss anything?
No, that's about it. Everything else, it looks like we were gonna either wait for the master plan or staff wasn't super comfortable with it or something like that.
Correct. Kim, do you want to make a motion to approve those?
I make a motion that we approve all of the ones on the list that we want to accomplish in this fiscal 2022 year.
Second.
All those approve or agree? Aye. Motion passes. So I apologize. Today has we've spent a little more time today than we guess I normally, or I thought we would have on this particular topic. But is everyone okay for a few more minutes to address a few of these last agenda items?
I can stick around, Neil.
Brett, do you have any updates? Do you want to share with us?
Chris has got some updates on the Stories and Stones.
Okay, let's.
I do have one update, I guess. So we did hire a new maintenance foreman. And he's been on staff here for about 3 years now. His name is Jesse Freckengoss. He's got about 10 years of experience as a golf course superintendent and about 5 years experience as a lead foreman on a construction crew. So his skills will be very fit in very well with the cemetery. And
oh, that's fantastic. Welcome him to the cemetery for us. Thank you. That's exciting. Paul, do you want to talk about the National Register?
What was the new person's name?
Jesse,
I thought Adam was your foreman.
he was the interim foreman.
Oh,
Sure, National Register. So we met with Elizabeth Johnson, the Historic Preservation Officer, and just kind of walked around the cemetery, identified some of the unique features. And like I said, Elizabeth's, fortunately, she's got a strong interest in cemetery nominations and has actually done some work in that area, which is a pretty unique area for National Register listing. She was going to reach out to the State Historic Preservation Office to see what the state's feeling is. Oftentimes states will not list cemeteries. Montana, I don't believe, is one of those states. Montana has a couple of cemeteries that are on the National Register. So it's a unique thing to put on the National Register. It is something, as Jeremy pointed out, it's something that is in the strategic plan that was identified as something worthy of pursuing. And just in terms of what that means to the cemetery, certainly there are grant opportunities, and in the event that there were federal money involved in something that would really impact the National Register listing, that's when it really comes into play. If there is federal money involved, there's a different process that federal dollars have to go through for compliance for National Register listed properties. But as a local agency, city agency, making changes to the ground, we can pursue those at will without without recourse, essentially until we want, we could take out the cemetery for that matter. There's nothing that's preventing it in terms of the natural register from altering it in the future. It's just a means of recognizing that it is a significant place, and we see it as such in our community.
And as Jeremy was saying earlier, that he has someone who can help do some of the work on that. So we should be able to connect them and proceed with that.
That sounds like Paul's already met with Elizabeth, so you're out ahead of me on that, and that's great.
Oh, okay. So that was the same person. I didn't catch their name when you said it, Jeremy. So all right, never mind. I thought there was two different people there. Stories and Stones, Carissa.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if you guys saw the email I sent out today from the coordinator. She sent out a poll and got some feedback, and out of 42 people that she sent it out to, 13 people were yeses and 5 were possible. She's reached out to a few other places. We tried calling the university, but their phone is actually, they don't check their voicemail throughout the summer, so we don't have much luck getting in touch with them. NCT did provide us with a list of possible volunteers that might be interested. An email went out. We haven't really received much feedback yet, so we're still kind of in a holding pattern there. The only concern that we're really running into is, let me share my screen with you guys. So this is past Stories and Stones years. You can see the attendance rates. And the last year we did it was one of the lowest years that we've had in the attendance. And on an average, we've had at least 15 storytellers. But if we're looking at, we only have 13 yeses, and some of that may change, especially if the date changes. That's a concern that we might not have enough storytellers. And also, we're also a month behind in getting this going to get the date and everything solidified. So there are some concerns with proceeding, but if you guys feel like it's a good thing, then we can jump in full bore. But just wanted to give you all the facts.
Wasn't that 2019 one? That was the same year that we were up against the Sunday Streets. It was the same event that took place that day.
Mm-hmm.
Did we reach out to Missoula Children's Theater or MCT?
Yeah, we got an email we sent to, I think his name is Dwayne over there, and he forwarded an email to their list of volunteers, but we haven't really heard much back yet.
When the art museum has shows, certain shows in the community, they do an outreach program, just a general call. I wonder if we could just do a general call for actors in the community to be a part of that program. I don't know. Or is it, I mean, I respect the fact that we're kind of getting a little bit late in the game, but at the same time, I think it's a great event. The feedback, in all the 3 years or so that I've been doing it, the feedback has always been very positive. Yeah.
So that last year that we did it, there was a number of comments in the respect of how few actors were out there telling the stories, that they were very disappointed that there weren't certain ones that they were specifically looking for and stuff. And if we do another year of few, we may lose interest with people in the future. I mean, when you do have a large group of actors, and it's a lot to put that on. I mean, the guys at the cemetery are there first thing setting up, and then we're there for 3/4 of the day. It's it needs to be worthwhile.
Yeah, that's a good point, Kim.
Right, no, who did the survey? Neil, you did the survey. Didn't you do a survey?
Yeah, I did a market analysis for one of my business marketing classes on it. Essentially, what we found was we needed to market it harder. There was feedback about wanting more storytellers there. There was a lot of people that, I mean, basically everyone just said it was a great event. We want to do this every year. We really appreciate it. But definitely we have room for improvement around marketing it and making sure the general public is aware of it. And you're right, Kim, there was a lot of people who expressed interest in seeing if new stories could be developed because they've heard the ones that we'd been doing for a while, and or having just a larger number of presenters. Those were the kind of the only negative, or well, not negative, room for improvement type feedback that we got, or that I got out of that market analysis.
Yeah, because as you can see, when we originally, back in 2014, we had 33 storytellers. And so that number has steadily declined. And the last 2 times it was done, it was only 15. It was a half that. So.
Dusty doing Wayne Nance was a big draw. I think I don't know if we can continue if Dusty is interested in continuing that, but that one was certainly impactful for Missoula.
I think that was his last year of doing it.
Was it? Maybe there is. I mean, that was such a significant event in Missoula, and so many people, and it was relatively recent still that so many people came through and was like, yeah, I went to high school with him. That I don't know, it may be worth seeing if we can find someone else to do that if Dusty isn't able to. So I guess the question then is, are we on board with proceeding for offering Stories and Stones this year, or where are we at as far as that goes?
I will say that just in terms of my participation on it, this usually happens all behind the scenes, and then it comes out and it's like, oh, we're going to do Stories and Stones. So I don't really have a good sense of what's going on. But if there's only 15, it seems a little low. And if we are kind of pushing a deadline for participation, like, well, there's no sense in rushing through it. And we just put it off and, try and really start some early development for next year.
Another suggestion possibly is changing the date to the spring or May sometime, possibly, just to give it more time to locate more people that are willing to do the act.
I was thinking about the same thing, Brett. Yeah.
Well, and it would be better too if we were able to get in touch with the University Drama Club. There's probably going to be more people around that time of year than in the right in September when everybody's coming back.
Kim, do you have any feelings on postponing it or changing the date to spring?
I think the spring date would be great because you're not, in competition with football girls games and some of the other sports events that are going on. I mean, there are sports events in the spring, but I think that would be great. And if they could get a hold of the university and because part of the telling the stories, people were dressed up in whatever attire was needed. And so, you may have somebody from the community that's interested, but then are we going to be looked at to supply if they dress up, or are they just dressing as normal? That's all part of the glamour or just that people enjoy about the Stories and Stones.
Yeah, and that is not something the cemetery doesn't have any costumes or anything for people.
Yeah.
Those were self-provided.
Jeremy, do you think the mayor would be okay with us just postponing till spring?
I'm sure he'll defer to you on that.
Since they will.
I just didn't want to disappoint him if he had some expectation.
I don't know. I'm happy to ask him if you want.
I don't know if we need a vote on that or not. I think we're all in agreement that that it would be best at this moment to move the date for at least for the upcoming Stories and Stones to spring time. That way, it gives us time to work out more actors and develop the plan around Stories and Stones.
You
sound
guys
good?
have a particular month in mind that you'd like to see it done?
I mean, too early in spring is probably, potentially cold in Missoula. I guess that's my thing is, but of course you wait too late, then it becomes 108 degrees. Is there a good median in there somewhere? Is May, perhaps?
For Memorial Day, if you're gonna do May.
Okay, good call.
I would suggest like late April or early May sometime.
Well, I think partly based on time, but I don't know that the board necessarily has the right answer to this. Carissa and Brett, could I ask you to look into potential dates? And is that okay with everyone?
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's add that to our monthly agenda going forward, so that we can continue that conversation. Does anyone else have anything?
Hey, just one other thing on Stories and Stones. I think we have a copyright on that name, but I think it's only good for, I don't remember if it's 3 years or 5 years or 8 years. And then it expires.
You can be renewed. We just
Yeah.
have to, I'll have to go back and check the date when it expires and we just have to renew it on time. It might
Okay.
even be 8 years after the first renewal.
Okay.
So, but I'll
I
calendar
think-
that and definitely give it a check.
Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. We appreciate that.
Good.
Okay, well, I apologize that I certainly went over time today, but I thank everyone for their participation in this meeting. I think it was good and we were quite productive and gives us a lot of direction to move forward throughout the year.
Thank you all for your work on the strategic priorities. That was extremely helpful. I appreciate the time you put in on that.
Thank you. We appreciate your input on that as well, Jeremy. Well, then I will adjourn today's meeting and do you all a wonderful rest of the week.
Happy 4th of July.
Bye.
Happy 4th. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.